Hello everyone and welcome to chapter 7 lesson 3 group by clause. A group by clause is used to divide rows into smaller groups by using the group by clause. So let's assume you have this sample of data, department ID and the salary, and we want to retain the maximum salary per each department. So in this case you will divide the department IDs into groups. So this is the first group, this is the second group, this is the third group, this is the fourth group, this is the fifth group, and so on. So to retain the maximum salary per each department, divide the department IDs into groups. This is group 1. What is the maximum salary? There is only one record, which is the 4,400. What is the maximum salary in this group, which is 13,000? What is the maximum salary in this group, which is 11,000? What is the maximum salary in this group, which is 6,500? What is the maximum salary of this group, which is 8,000? So group by clause is used to divide rows into smaller groups. Group by clause syntax. So this is the select statement from clause, where clause, group by clause, it comes after the where condition, and last thing, which is order by clause. Let's have a look at some examples to understand how to use a group by clause. Select job ID average salary from employees, group by job ID. So in this case, I want to retain the average salary per each job, dividing the records into groups by using the job ID, and then calculate the average salary. So this is the output from running this statement. So this is the average salary for job ID SH clerk. This is the average salary of the job ID HR rep, and so on. It divides the rows into groups and then calculates the average salary for each group. In the second example, select department ID, count employee ID from employees, group by department ID. Here we are grouping the rows by using the department ID, and then calculate number of employees per each department. So in each department, this is department 50, 45 employees working in department 50. In department 40, there is only one employee working in that department. 110, there is only 2 employees working in department 110, and so on. So this statement retains number of employees per each department. Keep in mind, if you are using group functions or group by clause, any column in the select list must be either in the group by clause or in the group functions. In later slides, we will see examples to understand the idea more. Group by clause, multi-columns. Select department ID, job ID, count employee ID from employees, group by department ID, job ID. So here we are grouping by using department ID and job ID, and then retain the count of employees. So in this example, it retains all employees per each department per each job. Let's have a look at this sample of data from employees table. This is department 10, and this is the job ID AD assist. This is department 20 MK man. This is department 20 MK rep. This is department 30, and so on. So group by department ID, job ID, that means divide the rows by department by job. So in department 10, because there's only one record in department 10, so this is group 1. Department 20, job ID MK man. Department 20, job ID MK rep. So this is group 2. This is group 3. In department 30, PU clerk, this is one group. Rows have the same department and the same job in the same group. This is group 5. 40, there is only one job ID. This is group 6. 50, this is group 7. Estima 50, this is one group. And then retain count of employees. Here we have only one employee. For this group we have only one employee. For this group, one employee. For this group, 3 employees. For this group, one employee. For this group, one employee. For this group, 5 employees, and so on. So dividing the rows based on 2 columns in this example. So this is how to use multi-columns in the group by clause. Group by clause, avoiding errors. Select department ID, sum, salary. So here we are using group function. Any column in the select statement must be either in the group by clause or group function. So in this case, we have 2 columns, department ID and salary. Department ID is not in the group function and is not in the group by clause. So this statement will retain an error. You have 2 options here, either remove this department ID from the select list or use group by department ID. Another example, select department ID, job ID, count employee ID from employees group by department. So here we are using group by clause and we are using a group function. In the select list, we have department ID column, we have job ID column, we have employee ID column. Employee ID in the group function, department ID in the group by clause. What about job ID? Job ID is not in a group function and is not in the group by clause. So here it retains an error. We have 2 solutions here. Either remove this column from the select list or use group by department ID, job ID. Use multi-column group by clause. So in this lesson, we learn how to use group by clause in a select statement. I hope this video was informative for you and thank you for watching.